direct after being retrograde for a while. This will really help you understand what to focus on, what inspires you, how to take that depth and move forward with it. So check it out. Okay, so here we are now. We're looking at this shift of Jupiter now moving forward in Scorpio. I'm not going to be taking any questions or anything in this video. I'm just going to go through this as an update. So we can see how Jupiter is in Scorpio, and it was retrograde. Like if we go back a couple weeks, even just last week here, as I'm recording this on August 16th, even if we just go back to August 10th, Jupiter was retrograde still. Then he kind of stations, and you see the degrees, 20 degrees in 22 seconds. This was last week. Again, he had slowed down. If we go back the week before, he was 20 degrees, 27. You see that? Barely moving in a week, 5 seconds of arc, which is, this is basically the stationary direct motion. If we go back 2 weeks, a week before that, 2042. Again, hang out at 20 degrees. So this is July 27th. So then we go forward 2 weeks ago, last week, again, now he stops that little retrograde motion. He stopped it last week. So now here we are right now on the 16th, and he's still 20 degrees, 26 seconds from 20 degrees, 22. This is why I said last week, Jupiter, direct, sort of. It's not really direct, it's stationary. So Jupiter's stationary, hanging out at 20 degrees, now 20 degrees, 26 seconds. If we go forward next week, he's 2039. 2 weeks from now, 2101, he starts moving. 2 weeks from then, 2131, 2209, then he actually starts moving. But this is the middle of September. So even within a month, he will have moved a little more than 1 degree. But this is what we have with this stationary motion, right? Stationary direct. So then he'll start moving faster as the sun gets closer. And by early November, Jupiter will move into Sagittarius. So what we're looking at right now is this sort of culmination of Jupiter energy now in Scorpio. So he's been in Scorpio since around the end of last year. I think it was October of last year, and there's been this this sort of penetrating depth in our spiritual teachings, in the things that we're hoping bring inspiration, which is Jupiter energy. Jupiter's where we're trying to connect with that which is beyond the earth, those great teachings and those higher gurus and higher wisdom. And again, the name of Jupiter is Guru, and Guru is the one that allows us to sink deeper into existence and reality, to sink deeper into the truth. The word literally means heavy. That's one of the words for it. The dispeller of darkness. This is another way that you hear it. Ru is like the term guru is to like remove all of the darkness and stuck energy. And the way we do that is also those things that are heavy that allows us to sink into the truth. And Jupiter is the biggest planet, so it's those things that have gravitas, right? And literally the gravity of Jupiter is so immense that it sits out there in the outer solar system and sucks up all this cosmic debris, all these comets and asteroids and things that would bombard and destroy the inner solar system from Mars forward. Jupiter sits out there with immense energy and immense gravity, literally, and sucks up and destroys all of that difficulty. This is why Jupiter is also very beneficial for health. You like to see a Jupiter transit going in someone's first house to really benefit their health, or aspecting something that's creating bad health, poor health. When I'm looking at someone's chart and I know they have some health challenges, I like to see that Jupiter is about to start influencing positively, either through the dashas or the transits. So for people who have a Sagittarius ascendant or a lot of planets in Sagittarius or whatnot, you're about to get a great blessing of Jupiter going over those planets in November and for the next year after that. People who've been getting readings from me, I've talked about that. So when Jupiter went into Scorpio last year, again, this sort of protective, benevolent, inspirational quality where we learn great lessons has been going through Scorpio, where it's this kind of darkness, this kind of potential fear and stress and paranoia. That's the nature of Scorpio, where we might fall into more kind of negative qualities and, negative beliefs, be easily triggered because we're trying to manage and overcome our vulnerability and our imagined fears. And again, so Jupiter going through that sign is very good for helping us rise above the negative qualities of Scorpio and all of the triggering and the negative dark triggering that can happen. Look in the world around you right now and look at those who have tried to play on your fears and try to exploit you by stoking the paranoia. And I've been talking about this for quite a while. Whether it's the right wing or saying be afraid of the Mexicans and the foreigners and the Arabs and the Muslims, or it's those on the left wing saying be afraid of the conservatives and the Christians or whatever it is. We can tend to lose focus and be triggered one way or the other, and in both directions. We're all triggered one way or another, right? And so we're having to look at this triggering and learn more and go deeper into something more eternal and more devotional. That's the biggest benefit of Scorpio, because it's this fixed water. And of course, realize this is sidereal astrology, which Vedic astrology uses the sidereal zodiac, clearly stated in all the astrology texts that Ashwini and Aries start the zodiac circle. No question about that. So when we do this, it means that all the nakshatras line up, the Navamsha charts, all of that lines up. And so Jupiter is not only stationary direct, but it's also in the nakshatra of Jesta. Again, Jesta always falls from 1640 to the end of Scorpio. It's that section of sky. And so this nakshatra of Jesta, ruled by Lord Indra, who was the king of the gods, very much this, a king is it's like a ruler, it's a sovereign. It's, in the Vedas, he is a very benevolent entity. And you should look at Indra, and all the deities, I think primarily from their Vedic perspective. In later myths, especially in the Puranas, like the Mahabharata and the Srimad Bhagavatam and later texts, they became just part of a sort of interplay with the gods, and they became more secular. And Indra in those texts is sort of like a corrupt politician and one who can be easily exploited. That's definitely something that we can see in the world that we have to be careful of. This is why, especially the last several months, we've seen a lot of the corruption, a lot of political corruption across the board, and those who try to exploit us. And hopefully seeing the message that's deeper, that's beyond, a bigger game, a bigger picture, a more universal and, metaphysical and spiritual source of that, which is how we can really approach the Vedic deities, much more so than just their secular expression. So Indra in the Rig Veda was the great hero who saved the world, basically, allowed himself to be swallowed by the dragon who stole all the water. Indra allowed himself to be swallowed into the belly of the beast and then cut his way out of the belly to return all the water to the earth. So enormous courage and emotional heroism. And again, this is the higher quality of Scorpio and Indra, this deity, is that emotional heroism that gives you the courage in Scorpio, gives us the courage in Scorpio to not flinch, not be exploited, not be coerced and manipulated because of our fears, and instead to be heroic and willing and ready to be swallowed by our own fears and be immersed by that sort of chaos of existence that we can't control, because we can't control anything, and that's why we're manipulated. This is why we're easily manipulated, because someone says, here's this thing you can't control and only I can fix it, so trust me, believe me. That's how a politician can corrupt you, or in any sense, even if it's not a politician, even a guru, even a teacher who says, you don't know what you're doing, just believe what I say, I'm the only one who knows. And again, someone who says, I'm the only one who knows, is trying to exploit you. Now again, that doesn't mean that someone isn't teaching something that is pure and that you should try it and sort of check it out. But if someone says, I'm the only one who's right, then you need to be, then you need to be very careful of that. And so, again, in this section of Scorpio, we have the courage to be devoted. We have the courage to be devotional and to be devoted to pure teachings. See, one of the reasons why we're afraid even to trust teachers is because we've been exploited so much. We've been exploited so much, and we're afraid to hope. Again, Jupiter is that hope, that maybe maybe there is something pure. Maybe one day I'll find the answer, like that innocent child who believes. And after a while, we become sort of road weary. We've trusted so many times and it's never worked out. We trusted so many times and it blew up in our face. So Jupiter in Scorpio, one of the biggest issues is to be careful about cynicism and suspicion, and about not allowing yourself to be exploited, and trusting that you have the emotional courage to be devoted and to be devotional and to go through the disappointment. And notice when a pure teacher shows up. So when a pure teacher, again, Jupiter is the purity of your teachings. And notice when a pure teacher shows up, what you wind up doing. Do you wind up turning all teachers into this kind of cynical, seeing them all through your kind of cynical lens? If you do, then even a pure teacher will tweak you. In fact, often the most pure teachers will create the most obstacle for you because they're not playing into your fantasies. They're not trying to make you like them. They're not trying to BS you so that you'll listen to them. They're speaking the truth. And they don't care if you like them or like it or not. It's more important for them to bring the truth, not to play into your fantasies of what a guru or a teacher should be. Well, I better not say that because some people might not like it. If it's true, a good teacher will say it. They'll say the truth. So what happens when these pure teachings show up for you? Do they arouse your suspicion? Do you have the courage, like the emotional heroism of Lord Indra, to allow yourself to be swallowed by the unknown? Trusting that you have the strength to extricate yourself from the belly of the beast if you need to. Again, because this is what we need to do. We need to dive in. We need to jump in full force into life and trust that we can swim or that we're not going to drown. Again, Jupiter is that enthusiasm, that inspiration that leads to a trust that you can handle what comes your way, even if you wind up with a bad teacher or a bad philosophy. We've all had them. That's called life. But again, what happens if Jupiter is weak, then we stop being inspired and we just remember the time that we trusted and we were exploited. We believed in Christianity, but then we realized it was all BS and people were trying to manipulate us. Okay. That's life. That's called life. Grow up. Welcome to life. Everybody's got some version of that, and if that's the only thing that's ever going to inspire you, then just give up now. And again, this is what happens. We give up. We stop looking for hope and inspiration and think it's because the world is bad. It's not. It's because we're not looking in the right places. You know, I do this all the time with astrology. One of the main reasons why I have a lot of people that take my courses is because I actually talk on that higher level, that one of the biggest things that we don't understand, even about astrology and about life, is who we are, why we're here, why anything is here. Like, why is this the universe even here? There could be nothing. There could be nothing. Why is there something? And if there, and this something, how am I a part of the something? And who am I as an individual as part of the something? These are the most basic primal questions we all had when we were kids. And we've been so disappointed and devastated that we stopped even asking these questions. These were the questions that we asked our parents. We thought they knew, because to us, they were God. And then we realized they didn't have the answers. Okay, so then we all had this disappointment in our parents. Our parents don't know the answer. So maybe our teachers know. They don't know either. Maybe other people around us know. They don't know either. Nobody knows. So we start thinking that it's not even possible to know at all who we are and why we're here and why anything is here. But it is possible to know. And actually, Vedic astrology is the best thing I've ever found that actually teaches it. Teaches that we are spirit taken form. Again, many people believe that, but how does it work? We don't even think it's possible to know that. It's not only possible to know it, that's what astrology is. That's why you should study it. And again, you have to study with an astrologer who sees it that way and knows it that way. But that's, but again, my point is that this is the whole thing. I talk about this so much, even just with people who maybe want to study astrology, and in many ways don't even know what it is. They don't even know what they're studying. They run everything through this limited perspective that's already so narrow that they have to cram astrology and astrology teachers and everything that's possible into this narrow lens. And then me as a teacher, I have to try to maneuver around this narrow frame, this narrow box that they've already put everything in. So much of what I do even as a teacher at first is to try to bust open that box and say, look, and sometimes it's kind of rude and aggressive, but I'm like, look, you don't even know who you are. You don't even know how this universe works, and you're asking me to kind of react to your narrow box of what astrology could do or what it is or what's possible. None of that's even true, right? And again, that could be kind of offensive to people because I sound so arrogant. And I know it does. It sounds arrogant. It sounds arrogant when I say it. But I don't have any choice. I have to say it, Anyway, but all I'm saying is that teachings that can really transform and blow you up and blow up your world are going to show up as scary and threatening and transformative, and they're going to trigger us. And a lot of this triggering is like this emotional challenge that is presented with Jupiter in Scorpio. This is one of the best transits for Scorpio energy is Jupiter. Again, Jupiter does really well, of course, in his own signs. He does really well in Sagittarius, in Pisces. He's exalted in Cancer. Scorpio, it can be very powerful for Jupiter, at least ultimately, especially around this portion where it starts to, around the end. So we're right at the point where we've been seeing a lot of this dark sort of triggering. The difficulty with Jupiter going through Scorpio is that if a person in their natal chart, for example, doesn't have a powerful Jupiter, this can just magnify their dark fantasies. And this is why we can see this in the world right now. Some people who are dark and paranoid, they're doubling, tripling, and quadrupling down on their dark fantasies. They're dark triggering. Those who are prone to be triggered by darkness are more riled up and excited to hear all the dark messages. This is the difficulty of it. The power of it is those who have a more powerful Jupiter have gone through and gone into greater depths in the last, year or so since Jupiter's been in Scorpio, and are now emerging from the belly of the beast and sort of cutting their way out of the belly of the beast, like Lord Indra did, and sort of returning that water of devotion to their world and to the earth, and feeling very reinvigorated, even though it's been intense. Again, this is just Jupiter going through Scorpio. That doesn't include like all the eclipses and stuff we've been having, all the stuff that's been going on. Again, all of that's been going on. You want to see things separately. All of that stuff that's been going on has been catalyzing Jupiter in Scorpio and making us fall back on, what do I really believe? What do I feel? What are my fears? What are my hopes? What are my teachings? All of the eclipses, the K2 Saturn in Sagittarius that we've been dealing with, again, especially because Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. Again, this is how you look at these rulerships, where you had those eclipses over the summer with Rahu Mars, and the eclipse right with Mars there, and all this stuff that's been going on. That's been pressuring and activating and making us rely on our teachings and the teachings that we're devoted to. And we've been very compelled and very tempted to fall back on the dark fantasy. All of us. And I don't care who you are, even if you're the most inspired person in the world, when Jupiter goes through Scorpio, you wind up recognizing and noticing all of the dark fantasy possibilities and all that. That's the nature of the transit. It never changes. Like, for example, I have Jupiter in Pisces, so I stay pretty hopeful most of the time in the higher sense. I don't have any hope in the world because this is the nature of the world. But again, like my Jupiter's in Pisces, which is very much about, I have hope in the higher stuff, in the metaphysical stuff. I know that's where the real hope resides. So that doesn't change. But this transit of Jupiter going through Scorpio, I've been having to deal with all my triggering about the world and my paranoia, and it's in my 6th house. So, because I have Gemini, so that revolves around even maybe stresses and fears about, physical health. In fact, I even had some injuries this last year that I've had to deal with. I'm just actually piecing this together. As soon as Jupiter went into Scorpio at the end of last year, I got some injuries. I've been playing tennis, and that's made me realize, I'm getting older, yeah, but, bringing up some of this sort of paranoia, and I've had to double and triple down on my health and make sure that I'm not engaged in all kinds of crazy things that zap my energy. Again, so this is how every individual experiences it based on their ascendant. Again, this is why I encourage people to actually learn astrology correctly. I have all kinds of things like my astrology training lab with daily forecasts. And it's why I do these updates all the time and keep people aligned with how these transits affect their individual nature and whatnot. But all of us are challenged and tempted to go into the dark possibility when Jupiter goes through Scorpio. So a certain resilience is necessary to not go off the cliff with these energies and just stay hanging out in that dark fantasy. So you want to look at the Jupiter in your chart, see its dignity, see how powerful it is to remain inspired and hopeful most of the time, and notice how that's a sort of capacity, that's a sort of baseline. And so what happens is, like when there's a lot of pressure on it, the planet in the natal chart, like when there's a lot of pressure in the sky, the natal placement becomes ultimate and very important. So when the darkness gets triggered, if it's dark in the natal chart, the darkness gets magnified. If there's more light, the light gets magnified, and the person really connects to higher wisdom and higher devotion, or whatever the heck it is. So you got to understand these things are just all potentials. And even regardless of what's in the natal chart, that's also potential. Because maybe there's darkness for a while, but then that also is a catalyst for greater spiritual practice and other things in the chart. So again, this is just a kind of framework to try to understand for more advanced students or whatnot. But this is the stuff that you study and understand, and the reason you can know these things is because literally astrology is that science of who you really are, why you're really here, what karma really is, how karma holds it together, why there's something rather than nothing. All this is explained in the Jyotish texts. And I talk about these things in my advanced courses all the time and teach people and show them how these things work. And so, by the way, look out for that, because I'm right now, these next few days, next week or so, finishing and about to reopen my certification course again. I've been retooling it and going back and getting some things aligned. A lot of this is happening while Jupiter was retrograde in Scorpio. This is a lot of the stuff that I've been doing. That's what I've been doing. And when Jupiter goes retrograde, it's a good time to do that if you're a teacher. To reflect, to go back, to strengthen, to fortify. And then when it starts to move forward again, you start moving forward. And what winds up happening is you don't consciously plan this stuff. Like, for example, I didn't consciously plan that. In fact, I had planned on doing these things and reopening my certification course several months ago. But I just haven't, it hasn't been the time. And I'm realizing, oh, okay, it's because Jupiter's been retrograde. Okay. And I've been reflecting and making sure that it's pure and that the offering is right. So I'm saying this not just as a self-referential story, but because as Jupiter starts moving forward and you're interested in learning and studying astrology, look out for these things. Because astrology is definitely something that you should know, and in fact, you're meant to know. We are meant to know our place in the cosmos. We are not meant to walk around not understanding anything about who we are, who we are as a divine being, who we are as a participant in the cosmos, what the cosmos is, what the matrix is, what all these energies are. We're not meant to walk around blind and ignorant of those things. That's why we have something called Jyotish, which means the science of light. What do you think light is? Well, it's the opposite of darkness. And by the way, it's light that removes darkness. Light is the guru, literally the remover of darkness, which is the name of Jupiter, Guru. The dispeller of darkness is none other than Jyoti, or light. And this is why those with the powerful Jupiter often are drawn to Jyotish at some point. Again, especially if they have a lot of other spiritualizing factors. And so these are all things that are happening right now as Jupiter starts to move forward and leaves Scorpio. It's a time to return to the light after going through this transformation and this devotion. And again, to learn anything, your heart needs to be engaged. And your heart is often not engaged until you go through some kind of turmoil and you encounter and you face your own limitation. And so on the other side of that, we're devoted to the teachings that have helped us through that, and the teachers that have helped us. The teachers that have brought light and wisdom into our life are some of the most pure connections we have. It's like we can't ever repay what feels like a debt to those who have taught us something real and meaningful. And to my teachers, I'm so grateful that I learned something that can never be taken away. It's different than just learning something. But I mean, a guru is something that teaches you something that you could never have learned otherwise. Maybe you could have learned it, but through their transmission and you see their devotion and their sincerity, they've taught you something that is irreplaceable. That's why we're here. You know, the universe isn't a playground, it's a school. It's the university. Life in the university. And by the way, that's one of the chapters in the book. The university. It's not a playground, it's a school. And part of the school is a playground, but then you go back to school. Okay, so anyway, this is the Jupiter and Scorpio update. It's moving forward, and then we'll just go forward, and you'll see when it leaves, it goes into Sagittarius. I think it's the 4th. Yeah, on the 4th of November. So between now and November the 4th is a great time to reconnect with what inspires you, to make a commitment to it, to focus on it. Again, because that's also what Scorpio is. Scorpio is a fixed water sign. Focus on that thing and be very devoted to those things that have inspired you, and commit and focus on them. And then when Jupiter goes into Sagittarius, of course, it's going to be a great time for the next year to be inspired by your teachings and your higher wisdom. And of course, you'll join K2, and I'll talk about all that later. But right now, we're here with Jupiter no longer retrograde, moving forward at a snail's pace. And so you can feel that energy building up and that momentum ready to commit and focus. So again, be on the lookout for things that inspire you, that you want to focus on. And I'm also intentionally saying my upcoming course because it's definitely timed with all of this for sure. And if it's something that inspires you, you can always try it. You can check it out. One of the things I always do with my courses, and by the way, it's one of the things that makes people trust me and try them, is I always give a guarantee. If you don't like it, if for some reason it doesn't work, you can get your money back with all my courses. Hardly ever happens, but that's another thing. But the point is that it's an opportunity to trust those things that have motivated you and that have helped you. Again, my course or not, or whatever it is that is coming into your life. This Jupiter stationary direct in Scorpio is a great time for you to be reflecting and be ready to commit and focus and concentrate on what inspires you, whether it's astrology or yoga or other kind of teachings, as Jupiter is also about to go into Sagittarius and will plant new seeds of truth and beauty and wisdom. And we see those new seeds of truth being planted first in Mula nakshatra. Again, this is how the nakshatras line up. Mula is about seeds and planting and uprooting the old seeds and plant new seeds. That's the first section of Sagittarius. Always. Again, sidereal zodiac. First, we uproot those dark seeds of Scorpio, plant new seeds of hope and inspiration. That's the first section of Sagittarius. And by the way, what this means is that come early November, you're going to want to be surrounded by things that inspire you. This is how we predict the future. Right now it might seem like I'm not sure and I feel a little stuck. Right. But again, as Jupiter starts moving forward, connect with the truth, the love, the devotion, and make a commitment to it, because you'll be able to tell, I can tell that by early November and for the next year, you're going to be inspired and want to be focused on something that inspires you. And you want to be ready to plant those new seeds of truth and inspiration by the time we hit early November. You will be planting new seeds. And so they should be good teachings, because there's going to be something is going to get uprooted and pulled out and destroyed in your life. So you should have a good value system and teaching structure in your life at that time to focus on and to commit to. Because that Jupiter going through Mula is first going to rip something out. Yes, it will. And when you have a course, an inspired course in your life, when something gets ripped out, what do you think replaces it? That great teaching. Because the only things that we can lose are things we never had to begin with. And something will get ripped out that creates a space, and then we fill the space with whatever we're the most devoted to. And that's Sagittarius energy, and I'll talk about that when the time comes. But anyway, I hope this was helpful to hear. Share this with others. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe and ring the bell so that you get updates. So thanks a lot.